Hi friends, Miles here with another Digitone video, and this one is a little bit special because this time I want to talk a little bit more about what the Digitone is for me, because I think the Digitone is a great standalone synthesizer and a great standalone music tool. And today I want to talk with you about 6 reasons why I think the Digitone is great for making music standalone, and also in the end of the video want to talk about some downsides of this device too, because I think it's good, but it also has some downsides. Now, reason number 1 is workflow and structure. And I know a lot of people will maybe disagree with me now, but I really think that the Digitone has an absolutely intuitive workflow, and yeah, it just really works pretty well if you know what to do with it. I have to admit, before I bought the device, I watched a lot of YouTube tutorials and read a lot on the Elektron forum as well. But I really like, for example, the copy and paste functions, that you can copy and paste nearly everything, like different tricks, but also pages. You can paste and copy and paste settings and pages. You can copy and paste whole tracks. You can name all of your patterns. You can name your projects to really keep everything structured. And that is something that really helps me when I'm making music. And I think that is a huge plus on the Digitone. Reason number 2 for me is the sequencer. Cuckoo said when he made a SOUNDPACK for the Digitone in one of his descriptions for the SOUNDPACK, a quote that I really like. He said that the true power of the Digitone lies within its powerful sequencer. And that's a great quote that I think is absolutely right. And I think it suits a lot of Elektron devices, but the Digitone in particular. In the sequencer, you cannot just play notes. You can step lock, I think, nearly every parameter that's accessible for you. Like, for example, the amp ADSR. You can parameter lock the different effects that the Digitone offers, like the reverb, the delay, and the chorus effect. But you can also step lock very many other settings in the synthesizer or in the sound synthesis settings as well. And I think that is something that makes it really powerful. And what is also great is that you can, via the sound pool, switch different steps to completely different sounds. So for example, you have a kick drum playing on your first track, and you want to add a snare to the same track. You can do that by changing the specific trick in the sound pool. And I think that is something that makes the Digitone really great as a standalone synthesizer, because for me it makes it possible to put all of my drums in only one track. So the Digitone has only 4 tracks. Of course, that's a limitation, but I think that it's really good that you can bring all of your drums, for example, into one track, so that you have 3 other tracks that are completely free for your music. So all in all, the sequencer can be used to really boost up a really static loop and to make it something really unique and evolving that's always changing. And this way you can bring a lot of interest to your music. Reason number 3 is general sound and connectivity. I think the Digitone as a whole sounds just really good as a synthesizer, no matter if you just use the regular outs or if you use the headphone out or if you use it via overbridge. But it really has a great sound character and something that is good to use in so many different ways. You can, for example, craft very great melodic sounds on the Digitone. You can also craft very great percussive sounds. You also have great sounding effects that I really like, as I already mentioned, the reverb, the delay, and the chorus. You also have the option to overdrive your sounds, which is really good. And all of that gives you the opportunity to create sounds that sound, in my eyes, really good. But if you don't want to use the Digitone standalone, it's also great for connectivity and to use it together with other devices. I, for example, hooked it up with the OP1, which was really great fun and sounded really good. You can also use all of the Digitone synth effects on your inputs. So, for example, if I plug the OP1 into the Digitone, I can use all of the Digitone's effects to make the sounds coming from the OP1 a bit more lively and really fit to the sounds that are already coming from the Digitone. And I think this just works really good. And this also works for the Digitakt. The Digitakt is also a great partner for the Digitone, and yeah, I have a lot of fun jamming with these 2 devices. Reason number 4 on my list is sound design. I think the sound design options that you have on the Digitone are really, really great. Of course, this device cannot be, also due to its form factor, it cannot be compared, for example, to a DX7. But apart from that, I think the sound synthesis engine in all is limited, but really, really intelligent. You can get a lot of things out of it. You have the carrier C, you have 2 different operators that you can use, 8 different algorithms that you can choose from. And what I really, really like about this synthesizer is that you also have filters. The bandpass filter that I personally like to use for mixing my tracks, to cut a little bit off the low end or the high end to make them sit good in the mix on the Digitone, which is great if you use it standalone because you don't have another mixing option for your several tracks. But what I also like is the first filter, where you can really apply resonance to the filter, where you can use the resonance, you can use a filter envelope, and this I think makes the device really special, that you have so many options by using the filters, and to combine the filter with the synthesis engine is really, really great. And also you have 2 different LFOs that give you great sound design options as well to make your sounds really, really unique and evolving. Oscillator Sync here on YouTube made a great tutorial on how to use these 2 LFOs. I will link this down in the description if you haven't seen it yet. So reason number 5 why I think the Digitone is a great standalone synthesizer is portability. I think it is really great to have a tool like this that has a form factor like this that you can carry nearly everywhere. And you can take, for example, if you are out with friends, you go to another studio to make music, you just want to go out into the nature to make some music, or on a business trip, for example, and make some music at the hotel, you can definitely do that. And this is something that I really, really like and I honestly use a lot. I got this deck saver for the Digitone, and I also got this case here by Analog Cases. And I want to be transparent here because Analog Cases reached out to me and sent me one of their cases over for me to check out. Huge thanks again to the lovely people at Analog Cases for that. But I already had one of their cases before I got this one from them. So I bought this one for my own money, and yeah, I really, really liked it, and it served me very well on several travels till now. The case is very stable. You can also fit in a lot of cables in there, which is really nice. Not only the Digitone, but also some cables. And what I really like about this is that the Digitone goes in there with the deck saver, which is just great for a little bit of extra protection. And the same goes, of course, for the Digitakt, which is the same form factor, and it fits there as well. And I think the analog heat fits in there too. So thanks again, Analog Cases, for supporting my channel. And now I have 2 cases to get the Digitone and the Digitakt with me when I'm on trips. And I can't wait to do that in the future. Coming back to the Digitone, one downside on this device for me is that it's not battery powered. So saying that is you need to power it with some kind of power supply and to make really great use of it. I know a lot of users use a ripcord for that, and together with just a power bank. I have not tried this on my own, but this is something I want to look into in the future and really try to get the Digitone out and to make great use of that. And the Messy Desk here on YouTube also has a completely self-made battery-powered Digitone, which looks super dope and super interesting. I'll link the video down below in the description. And the last reason number 6, is thinking out of the box. I know the Digitone has some limitations, which I'll cover in the end of this video when I get to the downsides of the synthesizer, because it's not perfect, obviously. But all these limitations really, really boost creativity and really make you think out of the box and try new approaches where you can learn a lot of different things. Because when you use the synth standalone and want to get everything on it, like drums, basses, lead sounds, arpeggiators, and maybe even chords, you will soon realize that the limitations of, for example, 8 voices or also the sequencer has some different limitations that you need to overgo. Just to give you an example that I stumbled across is I tried to get all of my drums on one track, like I said in the beginning of the video, and then I realized that it is really hard to get 2 tricks playing at the same time. So for example, if I have to play or if I have a kick 4 on the floor playing and want to add a snare or a clap on the 2 and the 4, it's not so easy, because in the sequencer it's not possible to have two tricks on one track playing on the same trick, or two sounds playing on the same trick. So I found a way to overgo this problem, that I used the trick beside the kick drum and then micro-timed it all the way to the left. But then you have the problem that the voices will cancel each other out. So to overgo this problem, you need, and that's something I learned too, you need to change the root note of the snare. For example, if it before was C5, then you can change it, for example, to an F5 or a C4 or whatever works for you. And then the two are perfectly layered on top. And this approach can be stressed out really much, till the point that you have an arpeggiator of a hi-hat, for example, going through the whole track and putting a lot of movement into one single track that would not be possible if you just use the sequencer the way it should be used. And if you want to learn more about this, I have a tutorial where I break down my latest Digitone only jam that I'll link somewhere up here, and that you can check out. And there I discuss this approach where I get all my drums on one track. Another advantage in my eyes is that if I use the Digitone standalone, I focus way more on the elements that I use in the track and try to make them really stand out. When I use the Digitone, I usually only have drums, I have a bass track, I have a lead track and an ARP track. The second or the both last tracks are always changing. Sometimes I use two leads, sometimes I use two ARPs, but that's in general the setup. And what I experienced by using such a limited setup is that I really at first try to make all these sounds really stand out and to make them sound the best that it's possible. But also that due to the reason that I have only these sounds available, or only 4 tracks available, they cut very much more through the mix, and really, you get all their delay sounds, all of their reverb sounds. You just hear a lot more of these sounds and what they are doing, and the mix doesn't end up too muddy, and I myself find it easier to master the whole thing and to do the mix down just within the Digitone and then just go straight to the mastering process, and to get some results that I really like and that I can share with the community. So that is something I think is a huge plus on the Digitone, where you really learn to use the sound limitations that it has and try to stick to the sounds that you have and make them the best possible. Now, that said, and having praised the Digitone quite a lot, let's also talk about some downsides too. Because the Digitone, I really like it as a synthesizer, but it also has limitations that you need to face and really consider when you try to make standalone music. The first limitation that I want to talk about is track limitation, because no matter how far you push the sequencer and how good you use all of your 4 tracks, in the end, these are only 4 tracks that you can use. And when you use the track, not the track, but the Digitone standalone, it's of course hard to layer sounds and also get a lot of different elements going on. Because if you want to layer them, you need at least 2 tracks that are playing kind of like the same thing. So you have only 2 tracks left, for example, for drums and for bass. And that's of course a limitation that you will face when using it. Now, the second limitation that I often face is only having 8 voices to use for all tracks in combination. So you can't, no matter what you're playing, you can't overgo 8 voices playing at the same time. And when you really push the sequencer to the limits, you will soon face that this is definitely a limitation, because you will get some voice stealing going, you will have some sounds that are cutting or being cut off, and yeah, that's something that you really need to consider when making music with it. And you need to think careful and structure and plan your music in a way that it works and that you don't have too much voice stealing going on and destroying your creations. The third limitation that I often experience is pattern limitation or pattern length limitation. The Digitone track length and pattern length is limited to 64 steps. And there are some tricks to overgo this problem. I recently made a tutorial on how to do that and to extend the pattern length using some tricks to kind of like 128 steps, but also 128 steps can be really limiting if you want, for example, evolving melody line or different chords to play for a long time, and to put them on one pattern is really difficult on the Digitone, and you need to think of strategies again on how to achieve this. But straight out of the box, it is sometimes for me difficult to lay out long evolving melody lines in the Digitone due to the pattern and track length limitations. Another limitation is to only have 128 sounds in your sound pool. At first that might sound as quite a lot, but when I structure my projects and really want different jams to be all in one project that I can switch from jam to jam, it's definitely a limitation, because I end up very many times using the same kick drum in the same tracks just because of this limitation. I try to tweak the kick drum then a little bit, or to tweak the snares that I use, but this is definitely a limitation, and you will reach, if you really use all banks in the project, you will reach the limit of 128 sounds in your sound pool quite fast. So this is something that involves some planning as well, and also some structuring. One addition to that is that in the latest Digitone update, the firmware update, Elektron added a feature where you can, in the sound pool, select unused sounds and directly delete them. This is really handy, because sometimes you just lose the overview of which of the sounds you already used in your project and which you didn't use, and just load up into the sound pool. And this now gives you the opportunity to free up some space and to make this space used for new sounds in the sound pool. But still, I find that I reach sometimes the limit of 128 sounds in the sound pool quite fast. Yeah, and that's it. That wraps up my thoughts and experiences using the Digitone for quite some time now as a standalone synthesizer. And if you're maybe now considering of getting a Digitone in 2021, maybe this video can be a little help for you to consider if you want to get it or if you don't want to get it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it. So do you like the Digitone? Do you find it a great standalone synthesizer, or do you think it works better in a setup with other synths, or maybe together in a setup with a digital audio workstation? Just let me know, and I'm happy to discuss this with you down in the comment section. So thanks everyone for watching, stay safe and creative, and I'll see you in the next one.